0. Shalom, Erev Tov, good evening from Jerusalem, Israel. This is Lowell Joseph Gallen, founder of the Root and Branch Association Limited, established in 1981 in the state of New York of God of Israel, bless America, and now celebrating our 40th anniversary. I'm going to do something I don't usually do because our program chair has to go in a few minutes. I'm going to give the floor to him so he can introduce our host, Mrs. Yaffa Batya de Costa. And Les, let me hand it over to you. If you would unmute and make you the spotlight, go ahead so you can introduce Yaffa.
Okay, 1 minute. There we go. Okay. Okay, it is a great honor. Thank you so much, Lowell. It's a tremendous honor and a privilege to introduce the Rabbanit Yaffa Costa.
I think that he has problem with his microphone.
Les, we're having a problem. We can't hear you.
Okay, now?
We can hear you better now.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Okay, Rabbanit Yaffa Costa is a very prominent member of the Root and Branch monthly programming, and it's always a great honor and privilege to have you. And I first met you at the OU where you gave a phenomenal presentation. So I'm just going to give a very brief CV because we eagerly anticipate your incredible presentation, which you always do. But Costa.
Les, you have to speak more clearly into the microphone. We can't hear you.
Sorry. Okay. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. I'm just at an event in Shalva, but okay, this is it. So Rabbanit Yaffa Batya de Costa is the founder and the CEO of Ezra Anousim, which is helping Anousim since 2005, an Israeli non-profit organization. It's made up of almost 30 managing directors from all over the world, and many of the activities many of the people that actually donate their time are actually from Bnai Anousim. People have joined the organization for many years to work with Yaffa Batya in helping the Bnai Anousim to make a full and public comeback to their faith and the traditions of their Sephardi Jewish ancestors. Yaffa Batya's upcoming 30th anniversary of being involved with this movement will be on spring 2022. She has extensive business management.
Les, you have to hold the microphone to your mouth.
Sorry. She has extensive business management and consulting, coaching, projects management background with a corporate 100 companies in the USA. So Yaffa, I can't wait for the time when we'll be able to see you again in person. Your presentations that you gave at the OU were phenomenal, but this is pretty good with the Zoom, and we so look forward to your presentation this evening. So really, I'm sorry it's quite noisy where I am, but I just couldn't not attend the Zoom meeting because what you have to say is so vital for all of us, and we look forward with great anticipation to what you have to say this evening. So without any further ado, our guest speaker, our honored speaker, Batya de Costa. Thank you so much.
Right, I'll have to skip, I'll have to, Les, could you turn off your mic now? Because we hear like dental equipment or something. I'll have to skip my usual introductions, which is okay, except to say this. This is our Root and Branch Association monthly Bnai Anousim Seminar, hosted by Mrs. Yaffa Batya de Costa. And all I want to say is, in case you haven't noticed, I didn't have time to iron it. This is called a Guayabera shirt. That is in honor of those members of the Spanish-speaking world who come from countries where they wear Guayabera shirts. So yes, it is. Today is Thursday, June 24th, 2021, and the 14th day of Tammuz 5781. I'll skip all my other introductions. Yaffa, let's go ahead with you. And I'm handing it over to you now. Let me put you in the speaker view. Yes, you can't do that, right? Let's see, how do I do this?
No, leave it on views of everybody there. That's
Yeah,
good.
it is. I just want to get myself out of cancel spotlight. Right, now it's your turn. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Now I'm going to try to share my screen, so you let me know if it's shared. Okay.
Yes,
because
yes.
I don't see.
Gentlemen, can you, the screen is shared, yes.
So what do you see?
At the moment we see your name.
So that's not what's supposed to happen here. Let me try it again. Do you see my screen?
Showing the, yes, but the Zoom meeting. You have to choose the other one, your slides, to show them all, or I can help you.
So I have it on my screen right now, the first slide. Do you see that?
No, you are looking like at your screen, but on Zoom. We're seeing like twice the Zoom meeting.
No, that's not good. Okay, Moshe, why don't you do it for me? I don't know what I'm doing here and sharing my screen.
Okay, please unshare your screen. I'll do it.
Okay. Moshe is my translator, everybody. He's a great guy. He lives in Mexico. I can say your first name, Moshe. I don't know how to say your last name.
Rutzeger.
Ah, okay. Rusker. Okay.
Rutzeger. Yes. Okay, close,
Now,
please.
so you
Stop
have the
your...
PowerPoint there?
I have it. You have just to undo the sharing. Yeah, there you are. I'll do it right away.
Ah, okay. So if you can put it in full screen. Okay, Yofi. No, you got to go all the way up to the top. That's the bottom. Very first slide. Okay, there you have it. Okay, so this is the monthly meeting, as Les mentioned, hosted by Root and Branch. Next slide, please. And you can see me there. This photograph, by the way, of me was taken in October of 2015 at the Knesset meeting, where one of the MKs was trying to start, and he did start, a caucus for the Anousim. They didn't say Bnai Anousim, they said Anousim. And that changed a couple of years later. He left the Knesset. Then there was nothing really going on. And then finally, they started a different group, more to connect with descendants of Spanish and Portuguese, not mentioning Anousim at all. Okay, next slide, please. So I've been trying to be involved with these people for the past 15 years, and that's just a biographical. You can skip that. We did that last couple of times. And Moshe, if you could translate for me what I just said about being involved in that meeting at the Knesset in 2015.
Okay. Bien, entonces, esta es la reunión mensual de Root and Branch. Está ahora patrocinando también las conferencias de la Rabanit Yaffa, Débora Yaffa da Costa. Un poquito el trasfondo al respecto. Ella ha estado trabajando durante muchísimos años, es la fundadora de Anousim, y en particular la foto que vimos, que estamos viendo en este momento, es ella en la Knesset, en el Parlamento del Estado de Israel, mientras se desarrollaba una discusión y se abrió toda una sección en el Parlamento para discutir el tema de los Bnai Anousim, como ella lo ha venido manejando. Sin embargo, en ese momento solo se dirigió como Anousim. Había un miembro del Parlamento de la Knesset que velaba porque se pudiera abrir esta opción para que hubiera un retorno. Al final no se llevó a cabo Luego cambiaron también la dirección de este proceso y solo se enfocó a gente de España y Portugal sin siquiera mencionar a los Anousim. Entonces, bueno, ella ha estado envuelta en este proceso de buscar que pueda haber el retorno de Bnai Anousim desde hace más de 15 años.
Yofi. Excellent. Thank you so much. So we have this organization called Ezra Anousim. It's 16 years old. That's my Amutah number here. And that's the name in Ivrit. And that's our website, bnaianousim.org. Moshe?
Bien, entonces, este es el logo de Ezra Anousim. Está ahí el número de teléfono de la Ramanit, es el nombre de la organización en hebreo y también el sitio en internet para que lo quieran visitar.
Now I want to explain this graphic that actually is about 25 years old. And I said to a person who does these kinds of things, I want a graphic of a woman who's just finishing lighting the Shabbos candles. And she has a look on her face of calm and content and shalom, peace. But the daughter in the background has a worried look on her face, and she's finishing to shut or close the shutter of the windows because there's fear, because children were raised in these families with great fear of outsiders. And this is because of the Inquisition, of course. And he did an excellent job. I've loved this logo for 25 years because it shows so well the situation. Go ahead, Moshe.
Ahora, ella quiere dar un poquito también el trasfondo de por qué esta imagen. Ella la escogió, tiene más de 25 años, que solicitó a un diseñador que le hiciera. Ella le dijo, quiero una imagen en donde una mujer esté encendiendo unas velas y que se muestre la calma y esta paz que pueda ella sentir al respecto. Pero al mismo tiempo, también que haya una niña en el fondo que vea a su mamá y que tenga una cara de preocupación. Porque el contexto es, ella está cerrando las ventanas para que por fuera no las puedan ver, que no las puedan detectar, haciendo una alusión clara al hecho de que muchos Bnai Anousim fueron perseguidos y el solo hecho de encontrarlos desarrollando abiertamente su religión podría costarles la vida. Entonces, bueno, y considero que hicieron un gran trabajo en el diseño de la imagen.
Excelente. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just a very quick review. The main issues involved for the Bnai Anousim is one, there are people all over Latin American countries converting to Judaism. They are not accepted by the members of regular Jewish communities in those countries for the most part. There are always exceptions. They're not accepted because of something called the Takana that started in 1927 in Argentina and then went to other countries. The Israeli immigration law, the so-called law of return, says that a person can immigrate to Israel if they were, one, born of a Jewish mother, or two, converted to Judaism. Doesn't say anything about how converted or what kind of convert, nothing. It just says converted. That's the law. Now, the discrimination then against the Bnai Anousim is in the Ministry of Interior as part of an administrative policy by that ministry. So it's not a part of the law of return. It is de facto discrimination, not discrimination de jure in law. And according to the Ministry of Interior, this policy they have, a convert can be recognized as a Jew only in the context of being converted within a recognized Jewish community, and then they can be accepted for Aliyah. But of course, the last point is, remembering the Takana, the Bnai Anousim cannot be a part of the recognized Jewish community, so they're part of what the government here calls emerging communities, which is, of course, because of the Takana. And so, because they're not part of the recognized Jewish communities, they're banned from making Aliyah. So the first ban started in 1927, banning converts and returnees from the regular Jewish communities. And today we have the second ban, banning these people from making Aliyah. Moshe.
Bien, entonces tenemos el dilema de los Bnai Anousim. Los Bnai Anousim están convirtiéndose al judaísmo por toda América Latina, en países de toda América Latina. Ahora, ellos no son aceptados como miembros de comunidades judías regulares en estos países, en la mayoría de ellos, porque hay una takaná. Esta takaná, perdón, nació en Argentina, se originó en Argentina en el año 1927. Ahora, la ley de inmigración del Estado de Israel, conocida como la ley del retorno, dice que una persona puede inmigrar a Israel con dos condiciones. Uno, si nació de una mamá judía, o dos, si se convirtió al judaísmo. Ahora, la ley no especifica qué tipo de conversión, a qué tipo de conversión se refiere, donde la hizo. Simplemente dice que convirtió al judaísmo. Y la discriminación en contra de los Bnai Anousim es por parte de una situación administrativa en el Ministerio del Interior, una política. No es parte de la ley del retorno, es decir, de la ley de inmigración de Israel, del Estado de Israel. Es de facto, no de jure, no es parte de la ley, es una cuestión que se da de facto. Ahora, acorde a la ley del Ministerio del Interior israelí, un converso puede ser reconocido como un judío solamente en el contexto de una comunidad judía reconocida. Y entonces sería aceptado para hacer aliyah. Y este es el problema. ¿Por qué? Porque los Bnai Anousim no pueden ser parte de una comunidad oficial, puesto que hay una takaná que hace más de 90 años lo impide. Y por otro lado, el Estado de Israel no reconoce las comunidades emergentes, porque no son comunidades reconocidas. Por lo tanto, hay una imposibilidad de lograr este proceso de aliyah.
Excellent, thank you. So, next slide, yes. So here's the latest news of what's been going on since last month. I've been working with a Christian investigative reporter at the White House whose focus is on anti-Semitism. And that's going to continue probably over the summer. He's constantly asking me what's going on and for proof and articles from media, et cetera, and I'm doing that with him. The second thing is we're working with two current individual cases. One of a man, these are both Bnai Anousim, of course. One is a man who, from the United States, converted Masorti, and they are rejecting his conversion, claiming he's not Jewish, but he did come here to Israel. He married an Israeli woman, so he has residency status, but they do not accept him as a Jew. And we're going to try to work on his case with him. The second is a young woman who returned. She has a return certificate from a Beit Din in New York. And she was raised Jewishly, by the way, by her parents, who are also Bnai Anousim, of course. She did a return certificate. We made Aliyah 5 years ago on that return certificate. Now she's engaged to be married. And so she went to a major rabbi that works for the Rabbanut with her return certificate. And she thought maybe she would have to do it again here in Israel. I did. I had a return certificate and they made me do it again. They made me. It was okay. I didn't mind. I did it 3 times. So she thought maybe they would do the same thing, ask her to do it again. And the rabbi came back and said the rabbinate refused to accept the return certificate and she has to convert before they'll marry her here in Israel. The last 2 things on this slide is we're developing a social media team. We need more people for that team for a lot of things that's going on there. And we're developing print media articles or op-eds, what they call, for publication in both Israel and the USA and for publication in both Jewish periodicals and Christian periodicals.
Muy bien, entonces vamos a pasar a la siguiente sección, que son las últimas noticias de Anousim. Y bueno, recientemente comenzó a trabajar con un periodista cristiano que trabaja en la Casa Blanca y que tiene un enfoque de antisemitismo. La contactó, han estado compartiendo información que también va a ser publicada en algunos medios. Ahora, aparte de esto, ella ha estado trabajando en dos casos con sus particularidades. Uno de ellos es de un hombre que se convirtió en los Estados Unidos a través de una conversión masortí. Ahora, cuando intentó hacer ya su proceso de aliyá, fue rechazado, aunque él está casado con una mujer judía. Sin embargo, aún así fue rechazado. Él tiene su estatus migratorio bien, pero el tema de su papeleo para poder ser integrado como parte de una aliyá no ha funcionado. También de una mujer que de hecho hizo su proceso de retorno en un tribunal en Nueva York. Ella fue criada como judía por sus padres, que también son Bnai Anousim. Ahora está comprometida y está esperando contraer matrimonio en Israel. Sin embargo, al presentar esta teudá o este documento de retorno, fue rechazada por un alto funcionario rabino ahí en la Rabanut, y le dijo que no, este certificado no sirve, tendría que hacer conversión nuevamente. Las últimas noticias son todo el trabajo que se está realizando en redes sociales. Por supuesto, necesita más personas que se unan a este equipo como voluntario, y además está desarrollando todo este tipo de artículos para poner en medios sociales y publicar tanto en Israel, Estados Unidos, periódicos, incluso periódicos cristianos están recibiendo información al respecto.
Metzion, toda rabba. Next slide. The next thing is that we're trying to find or encourage high-level people who have name recognition to be champions for this cause, for the Bnei Anousim. So some of the topics that they would work on is, one, Holocaust museums are mainly about the Nazi Shoah. It's very, very rare for them to talk about the Inquisitions, which actually laid the groundwork for the Holocaust. Two, Christian anti-Semitism is based on replacement theology, and it's not even supported by the Christian texts in their own Bible. So we need to fight this, and I've got some people that are willing to fight it, but they're at lower levels, and we're looking for a major person to champion this cause. And the third one is we have no ability right now to reach out to the new Minister of Interior, Ayelet Shached, and we have no idea where she stands. But I can understand why emails aren't returned, maybe by a lot of the new MKs, because they're newly in their positions. They have to sort of get the lay of the land, figure out, you know, what's going on in that ministry before they start looking into making changes or adjustments, and not necessarily willing to talk about people's concerns about those areas right now. Moshe?
Ok. Parte de las noticias también son el hecho de que estamos buscando, dice la rabanit de Yaffa, que más gente se una al programa de apoyo en medios sociales, y además necesitamos estos campeones que puedan luchar contra ciertos sectores, ciertas cosas que están sucediendo. Por ejemplo, número uno, los museos del Holocausto solo se centran en la Shoah nazi. Sin embargo, no mencionan respecto a las inquisiciones. Sin embargo, estas inquisiciones previas crearon el trasfondo y ayudaron a generar las condiciones para que esta Shoah, este holocausto se diera al final de cuentas, y ni siquiera hay un link, no hay algo que los una. Lo segundo es el antisemitismo cristiano, que está basado en la teología del reemplazo. Y ni siquiera esto aplica para los textos cristianos del Nuevo Testamento, Entonces necesitamos gente que, o sea, que esté informada. Muchas veces hay gente que lo quiere hacer, pero no tiene un trasfondo adecuado en su formación teológica y conocimiento. Necesitamos alguien que quiera, pues bueno, batallar en esta área también. Y también ha sido complicado encontrar, al ponerse en contacto con la nueva ministra del Interior israelí. Ella es Ayelet Shaked. Probablemente sea por el hecho de que es nueva, es decir, hubo un cambio en el Parlamento israelí hace muy poco y no sabemos en este momento cuál es su postura respecto a todo el tema de Bnai. Tampoco ha respondido los correos. Probablemente sea un tema de lo pronto que es para que se ponga y se actualice en todos los temas que competen a su área.
Okay, next slide. We have some background noise. Okay. Number 4 is just to share with you this very thing. The new government in Israel had created these, what they call coalition agreements amongst one another, and there may be an overall one for all of them. And what they stated in some of these agreements, or maybe the overall agreement, is that they will maintain the status quo on matters of religion and state unless there's widespread public support for a change. Okay, and this is key for us, because if they're going to maintain the status quo regarding the Ministry of Interior and who can make Aliyah and who cannot make Aliyah, okay, which of course we haven't been able to, for the converts, make Aliyah for people. If they're going to change that, I believe it's going to require widespread public support. And that's why we've got this media plan and social media plan and writing op-eds and doing all the other stuff. Now, the Catholic and Protestant churches in Europe did not get behind Hitler, Yimak Shemo, with their help and support to him against the Jews. But the Roman Catholic Church was responsible for the Inquisitions. So there's been a suggestion that if the Jewish people promote education about the Inquisitions, whether through Holocaust museums or op-eds in the media or anything else, there's some suspicion, if you want to call it that, that there's a fear of backlash from the Catholic Church, okay, for doing that. And so we don't know why there's not more of a Jewish defense for the Jewish people regarding what happened during the Inquisition and how the descendants of the forced converts aren't being helped today by the Jewish people. We don't know why. We know that's what's going on, but we don't know exactly why. So that's one of the suspicions, is concern about backlash. And Moshe, you don't have to deal with the last one, the question. It's just the whole thing more about, you know, why is this discrimination going on? Okay.
Ok, entonces, bueno, lo siguiente es los nuevos acuerdos en el gobierno del Estado de Israel. Están enfocados en mantener el status quo en temas de Estado y religión. Y esto a menos que haya una presión o apoyo público en algún punto en particular. Precisamente por eso nos dice nuestra ponente que es importante hacer este ruido en los medios sociales y volver esto un asunto público. Es decir, si el Ministerio del Interior ya tiene, o sea, dio una puerta para que esto pueda llegar a cambiar y te dice, a menos que sea público, vamos a volverlo público y generar una presión social para que haya cambios en las políticas de la ley de retorno y demás necesidades. Ahora, como número 5, tenemos el hecho de que iglesias protestantes y católicas, si bien no apoyaron directamente a Hitler, ayudándolo cuando estuvo con todo su proyecto de aniquilación de los judíos, aún así la Iglesia Católica Romana fue responsable por todas las inquisiciones. Ahora, hay mucho de lo que se habla respecto a cómo se habían envuelto gobiernos y demás personajes en torno al Holocausto, pero hay poco que se dice de la Iglesia Católica. No es tan sonado, aunque esto, por supuesto, fue el preámbulo para todos estos asesinatos masivos. Entonces, mucho de ello probablemente sea porque eh, haya temor de una represalia en contra de judíos en general por parte de la Iglesia Católica. Es decir, vas y dices que la Iglesia Católica fomentó y creó toda esta maquinaria de la Inquisición, puede haber también ataques en contra y también algunos otros sectores del cristianismo puedan tener este enfrentamiento. Entonces, aún así, esto sigue siendo de dominio público, pero no es tan sonado. Hay que volverlo también algo tan sonado como todo lo que sucedió con la información que se tiene del Holocausto para que la gente conozca y se den las evidencias.
Okay, right. Great, great. Next slide. So here's the elephant in the room again. Most people in Israel know about all of this, what's going on. Most people I talk to, and some very high-level people, they know about all of this, although it's not published widely, it's not known by general public, because it's not talked about in a lot of areas. Next slide, please. Go ahead, Moshe, you can translate that.
Ok, vimos hace un momento, tenemos en este momento el tema del elefante en el cuarto. Este tema es algo obvio de lo que nadie quiere hablar. ¿Y qué es esto obvio? Es la tacaná que está vigente todavía en los países latinoamericanos y que al final de cuentas genera este callejón sin salida para temas del retorno a Israel. Es decir, o sea, sí te puedes convertir, pero nadie te va a convertir. Y si vienes y tienes la recomendación, te aceptamos, pero nadie te va a recomendar porque nadie te va a aceptar. Y dice nuestra ponente que esto es conocido en el gobierno de Israel. Ella ha hablado con altos mandos, con gente que está involucrada en estos temas y conocen de este elefante en el cuarto. Es decir, saben que esto está, nadie quiere hablar de ello porque al final de cuentas es algo que se trata de evitar.
Great, thank you. Next slide. I'm not going to read this slide. People can read it, but these are the strategies that we're going to employ over the summer, actually, until the fall, and we have some people come back from vacations and travel and whatever. And these may continue in the fall, but this is definitely what we're going to do over the summer. Go ahead, Moshe.
Okay, entonces tenemos algunas estrategias que van a ser implementadas por parte de Bnai Anousim. Voy a leerla rápidamente. Campañas en medios sociales, se van a escribir cartas, hacer llamadas telefónicas, también en los medios impresos, medios en internet, blogs también en internet y radio, y por Zoom para hacer presión y que se haga ruido en ese sentido y de esta manera presionar para que haya un cambio.
Great, okay. Now, there was an article that just came out yesterday from the JNS, Jewish something, I can't remember the NS part, where they talked about the demographic issue is probably the biggest thing that's going on because the evangelical population that's most supportive of Israel is white evangelicals, but the younger generation, okay, with a lot more people of color, including African Americans and Latina in the United States, are more picking up the cause of the Palestinians. It's partly because of progressive ideas on social and racial justice, why they've taken up the Palestinian cause. But the Palestinians are lumped in with a number of other, what they call threatened minorities. And so what they do is they target Israel as an aggressor. Go ahead, Moshe.
Bien, tenemos otro asunto que es el apoyo de los movimientos evangélicos por en pro de Israel está decreciendo. ¿Por qué? Hay un asunto demográfico y probablemente una de las cosas más grandes que está sucediendo en este momento. Sucede que hasta ahora la población evangélica que apoyaba más al pueblo de Israel, al Estado de Israel, eran los evangélicos blancos, podemos decirlo así. Sin embargo, a través del tiempo, en estos últimos años, las nuevas generaciones que ya no son tan apegadas tal vez a las ideologías de sus padres, o el hecho de que más gente de color, llámese afroamericanos, latinos, han estado uniéndose a estos movimientos cristianos y ha permeado la idea que en general es una cuestión social, en donde los palestinos se han vistos, subrayados o destacados como una minoría amenazada. Y entonces, todas estas ideas progresivas que están relacionadas con justicia social y racial han estado permeando en las iglesias cristianas y ven el tema palestino como algo actual y algo que necesita ser también apoyado, y ahora ven al Estado de Israel y a los israelíes como agresores en este sentido.
Great, thank you. Next slide. So I'm not going to read all of this, but it deals with what they call Christian millennials, which are the younger generation. The Christian people used to be having Bible study a lot. They actually would read the text in a lot of different churches. That hasn't happened a lot for many years, especially in certain denominations. And also the Bible, what they call the Old Testament, which we know is Tanakh, they actually presented it more as related to myth. So I'll read the last part. So when you do that over time, especially in an entire denomination, you're going to wipe out any view that Jewish history is real. So if Jewish history isn't true, then a Christian millennial is likely to say, well, then why is the Jewish claim to the land of Israel stronger than the Palestinian or anybody else's? And that's exactly what's happened over time. That's what they think.
Bien. Ahora, la teología liberal ha constituido un problema enorme en los últimos 30 años dentro de pastores y congregaciones, y en específico lo denominado millennials cristianos, que últimamente han estado separándose de una tradición de por lo menos lectura de la Biblia. Antes era común encontrar estudios de Biblia o estudios de, o sea, gente que se dedicaba a leer los textos de la Biblia. Sin embargo, ahora ya no hay siquiera esa disciplina. Mucho esto fue simplemente echado a un lado, e incluso se está viendo ya el Tanaj, conocemos nosotros, y ellos llaman el Viejo Testamento, como, o el Antiguo Testamento, como algo mítico, como un mito, es decir, como cuentos. Ni siquiera lo están viendo ya como parte de la historia de un pueblo, puesto que ni siquiera lo leen. El punto aquí es, en la mente de estos millennials, que son ahora la población que está haciendo presión y que está contando en términos sociales, es, bueno, o sea, si la historia judía no es cierto del todo, ¿por qué entonces deberíamos darles la posibilidad de que ellos reclamen la tierra de Israel si exactamente lo mismo podría hacer con los palestinos o cualquier otra persona? Y esto es exactamente lo que está sucediendo, basados en la ignorancia que está permeando a través de esta sociedad actual. Ni siquiera hay una referencia histórica, puesto que ni siquiera ven el Tanaj, el Antiguo Testamento, como un argumento válido para ello.
Todarva. Next slide. So this was the other section in the article that I pulled out that I thought was pretty interesting statement. He wrote, we have a serious education problem in the evangelical church. Too many people just don't know a lot about any given subject. They're smart, but they're starved for information because their pastor is up there hawking his latest book from the pulpit on Sunday morning instead of explaining serious issues. Go ahead, Moshe.
Ahora, esto todo lo que se está exponiendo es parte de una publicación, mismo de medios cristianos, y ellos dicen, bueno, tenemos un problema serio de educación en la iglesia evangélica. Mucha gente simplemente no sabe mucho respecto a ningún tema en particular. Son listos, estamos diciendo lo contrario, pero ellos están hambrientos de información porque los pastores simplemente sacan a pasear su libro al púlpito, el púlpito en los domingos en la mañana y nunca se meten a explicar temas serios, temas que tienen un trasfondo serio.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, now this takes a little bit of time for Moshe to translate it. This is the prophecy of Bilam that's mentioned in the Zohar. And this is one of the things that most people don't talk about from the Zohar. So I'll read it very quickly and then Moshe can translate it. Quoting the text of Balak, the Parsha for this week in the Torah, it says, I see him, but not now. And the commentary in the Zohar says, since some of these things were fulfilled at that time and some later, while some are left for the Messiah, we have learnt that one day God will build Jerusalem and display a certain fixed star, flashing with 70 streamers and 70 flames in the midst of the firmament, and it will shine and flash for 70 days. It will appear on the 6th day of the week, on the 25th day of the 6th month, and will disappear on the 7th day after 70 days. On the 1st day, it will be seen in the city of Rome. And on that day, 3 lofty walls of that city shall fall, and a mighty palace shall be overthrown, and the ruler of that city shall die. Then that star will become visible throughout the whole world. In that time, mighty wars will arise in all quarters of the world, and no fate shall be found among men. When that star shines in the midst of the firmament, a certain powerful king shall arise, who will seek domination over all kings and make war on 2 sides and prevail against them. On that day, when the star disappears, the Holy Land will be shaken. Over an area of 45 miles all around the place where the temple used to be, and a cave will be laid open beneath the ground, from which shall issue a mighty fire to consume the world. From that cave shall spread a great and noble branch, which will rule over all the world, and to which shall be given the kingship. And the heavenly saints shall gather to it. Then will the King Messiah appear, and the kingship shall be given to him. Mankind will then suffer one calamity after another, and the enemies of Israel will prevail. But the spirit of the Messiah shall rise against them and destroy the sinful Edom and burn in fire the land of Seir. Hence it is written, quote, and Edom shall be a possession, Seir also shall be a possession of his which were his enemies, while Israel doeth valiantly. And in that time the Holy One, blessed be he, shall raise the dead of his people, and death shall be forgotten of them. Rabbi Abba said, why is it written, for in joy you shall go out, Isaiah 55 verse 12? Because when Israel go out from captivity, the Shekhinah will go forth with them, and they with her.
Bien,
Moshe.
vamos a presentar ahora un extracto de la Perashat Balak, un extracto del Zohar, y nos dice así, lo veo, pero no ahora. El comentario en esta parte de la Perashá nos dice, ya que algunas de estas cosas se cumplieron en ese momento y otras más tarde, mientras que otras quedan para los tiempos del Mashiach. Hemos aprendido que un día Dios construirá Jerusalén y mostrará una cierta estrella fija que destellará con 70 afluentes y 70 llamas en medio del firmamento, y brillará y destellará durante 70 días. Aparecerá el 6º día de la semana, el día 25 del 6º mes, y desaparecerá el 7º día después de los 70 días. El primer día se verá en la ciudad de Roma, Y en ese día caerán 3 altos muros de esa ciudad, y un palacio poderoso será derribado. Y el gobernante de esa ciudad morirá. Entonces esa estrella será visible para todo el mundo. En ese tiempo se levantarán guerras poderosas en todas partes del mundo, y no se encontrará fe entre los hombres. Cuando esa estrella brille en medio del firmamento, se levantará cierto rey poderoso que buscará dominar a todos los reyes y hará la guerra en 2 bandos y prevalecerá contra ellos. Dicho esto, cuando la estrella desaparezca, Tierra Santa será sacudida en un área de 45 millas alrededor del lugar donde solía estar el templo, y se abrirá una cueva debajo del suelo, desde la cual se emitirá un poderoso fuego para consumir el mundo. De esta cueva se extenderá una rama grande y noble que gobernará sobre todo el mundo y a la cual se le dará el reinado. Y los santos celestiales se reunirán en ella. Entonces aparecerá el rey Mashiach y se le dará la realeza. La humanidad es una calamidad tras otra, y los enemigos de Israel prevalecerán, pero el espíritu del Mashiach se levantará contra ellos y destruirá al pecador Edom y quemará en fuego la tierra de Seir. Por eso está escrito, y Edom será en posesión. Seir también será en posesión de los que fueron sus enemigos, mientras que Israel actuará con valentía. Y en este tiempo, el santo bendito sea resucitará a los muertos de su pueblo, y la muerte será olvidada de él. Rabbi Abba dijo, ¿por qué está escrito? Porque con alegría saldréis, en Isaías 55:12, porque cuando Israel salga del cautiverio, la Shekhinah saldrá con ellos y ellos con ella.
Gracias, gracias. Next slide. So I put with this Parsha of Balak and the prophecy of Bilaam 2 other quotes from Tanakh. One is, they're both very familiar to a lot of people. One is Genesis 12:3, where Hashem is speaking to Abraham Avinu, and I will bless them that bless thee, and him that curses thee will I curse, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And Daniel 12:3, and they that are wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn the many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. Now, I used to think that the verse in Genesis 12:3 was talking about the enemies of Israel, meaning the non-Jews against Jews. But I'm starting to understand that it's anyone coming against the Jewish people, the servants of Hashem, even other Jews, if they do that. And when it talks about the wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, like the stars in the heaven, they're the people who are turning the many to righteousness. This is what Hashem wants us to do, to turn people to righteousness, either to help them if they want to convert or return, like for the Bnai Anousim, or help them if they want to become Bnei Noach, or help them in any way to become closer to Hashem. And yet our path and our attempts to do that for the Bnai Anousim are, at this moment, and have been for a long time, thwarted, and people get in our way to do that. Go ahead, Moshe.
Bien, quiso también extraer 2 versículos más del Tanaj, y en Génesis, en Bereshit 12:3, cuando Akadosh Baruj Hu habla con Abraham Avinu y le dice, y yo bendeciré a aquellos que te bendigan, y aquellos que te maldigan, ellos van a ser malditos, y en ti todas las familias de la tierra serán benditas. Ahora, en el libro del profeta Daniel 12:13 está escrito, y ellos que son sabios van a brillar como el brillo del firmamento, y ellos que van a traer de vuelta a los justos serán como las estrellas que brillan por siempre y siempre. Entonces, en un momento, yo pensaba en el sentido simple de la expresión de Hashem hacia Abraham Avinu, que esto se refería a sus enemigos, es decir, no sé, los no judíos que lleguen y quieran destruirte o maldecirte, ellos van a ser maldecidos. Sin embargo, nos dice nuestro ponente que he llegado a entender que incluso dentro de el sector del pueblo judío también llegaría a aplicar esto, es decir, judíos mismos que lleguen a contrariar los planes de Hashem e ir en contra de sus compañeros judíos. Y respecto de estos sabios que van a brillar como el firmamento y aquellos que traen de vuelta a los justos, son todas estas personas que traen de vuelta a gente a la observancia del judaísmo, pero no solo esto, también aquellos que traen de vuelta a gente que ha estado como los Bnai Anousim fuera por tanto tiempo, imposibilitados de regresar, o aquellos que ayudan a los Bnei Noach a encontrar el camino adecuado para acercarse a Hashem.
Yofi, Yofi, thank you. Next slide. So we're almost done. So what can we do given these situations? And I already mentioned the plans that we have for the summer. This slide is from the first presentation that I did. So it's about exposing the elephant in the room, public advocacy, demanding justice for the Bnei Anousim, appealing to all these government ministries, non-government organizations, Knesset members, etc., advocacy skills, teaching people how to advocate on behalf of Israel, having more activists doing this, and the Jewish-Christian relations work, working with the pro-Israel, the genuine pro-Israel Christians with no agenda, okay, working with them to help do the education that the Christian millennials need.
Ok, entonces, ¿qué podemos hacer una vez viendo esta situación? Parte de ello es exponer al elefante en el cuarto, es decir, hacer pública esta injusticia en contra de los Bnei Anousim y la discriminación que hay hacia ellos. También una defensa pública demandando justicia para los Bnei Anousim. Apelar al Ministerio Interior israelí, al rabinato, a los miembros de la Knesset, a las organizaciones sionistas y demás, para que tomen como parte de sus slogans o como parte de sus proyectos el acabar con esta discriminación. También aquella defensa para desarrollarlo, o sea, ayudar a todos los activistas de Bnei Anousim a centrar sus esfuerzos de forma adecuada. Incluso relaciones con ciertas organizaciones cristianas que dan apoyo al judaísmo en general. Por supuesto, estas organizaciones o iglesias cristianas que no tienen una agenda, es decir, que no tienen en mente ir convirtiendo a judíos, sino simplemente son pro-judíos para que puedan también ser bien educados y tener una información clara respecto a lo que judaísmo presenta.
Metsuyan. Okay, next slide. All right, this is an expression I love by Theodore Roosevelt. Do what you can with what you have where you are.
Bien, entonces esta es una frase que a ella le gusta mucho de Theodore Roosevelt. Dice, haz lo que puedas con lo que tienes en donde quiera que estés.
Ken, next slide. Now, this is a slide that shows what we're up against. In Israel here, we have a very diverse religious landscape in Israel. I don't know if you can see the numbers. 40% are called Chiloni, but that word doesn't mean secular, although it says that on the slide. It more accurately means unaffiliated. These are people who believe in Hashem, who may also even pray to Hashem, but they are not affiliated with any particular stream of Judaism. Ultra-Orthodox, Orthodox, Conservative, Reform, Reconstruction, Renewal, doesn't matter. They are unaffiliated, okay? Probably they had some problems with rabbis in the past. I don't know why, but I'll tell you, in Israel, 80% or more of the Jews in Israel observe Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. Oh, and Pesach as well, and have a Pesach meal. So it's a little bit, what's the word I want? A little bit distortion to say they're secular. Then the Masorti is 23%. Dati Leomi is 10% only. Religious and nationalist. That's what Dati Leomi means. Haredi is the ultra-Orthodox, and then 14% Muslim, and then smaller portions for Druze and Christians and others. Okay. So the Dati Leomi, along with the Masorti, along with the Chiloni, are the ones that are discriminated against by the Haredi, who have been in charge in the Ministry of Interior. And if they're not allowed to make any changes to the Ministry of Interior, that discrimination will continue, and of course discrimination against the Bnai Anousim. Go ahead, Moshe.
Ok, tenemos aquí una tabla de cómo está distribuido la diversidad religiosa en Israel, y tenemos que el 40% del sector de los israelíes están denominados como Hilonim, o en un sentido simple, secular, nos explica el ponente, que en realidad significaría más como no afiliados. Es decir, incluso que no puedan estar presentes o desarrollar una fe en particular, el 80% de la población en Israel o de este sector, por ejemplo, guarda Rosh Hashanah, Kippur, Pesach. Entonces, dominarlos simplemente como seculares puede no ser la mejor definición. Y luego tenemos un 23% que son tradicionalistas o tradicionales, Masorti. Luego tenemos Dati Leumi, que son los religiosos nacionalistas, con 10%, y solo el 8% son Haredim o ultraortodoxos. Ahora bien, este sector ha hecho presión, discriminado, dice, a otros sectores, toda vez que han estado en el poder en los últimos años, y no permiten hacer cambios en la ley de retorno, presionando así al otro porcentaje tradicional y Dati Leumi.
Great. Next slide. Thank you. Okay, so just to show you again this slide of the Western Sephardi diaspora, we mean the Anousim, Bnai Anousim. We now have a managing director for this area for what's called MENA, Middle East and North Africa. We have people representing Europe, Spain, and Portugal. I need a managing director for London. We have people representing Brazil and the North South American area here of Colombia and other countries, of course, the Caribbean, the Northeast to the Southeast, as well as the Southwest and Mexico. Okay, so, and we also have people in Canada here. There's two blue spots of the French Canadians in Montreal and Quebec, and of course France itself. Okay, and the different color codes is whether it's mixed Spanish or Spanish and Portuguese, or Spanish and Portuguese and French. You know, that's the legend there of the different color codes. But this is all in Australia, of course, and New Zealand, and Far East, and the Indonesia, area of Indonesia, and the Philippines. Okay, these are all countries where the Bnai Anousim, the descendants of the original forced converts of Spain and Portugal, where they are living today. And some of their ancestors may have come from Iraq or Iran, the Persian Jews. Okay, so we have this fellow who actually lives in this Middle East, taking care of Middle East and North African people who are trying to come back, who are hiding as Jews, and he helps them out. So that's just the picture of all the different places where the Bnai Anousim live today.
Bien, entonces nos quiere mostrar nuevamente este mapa donde están distribuidos aquellos sectores de Bnai Anousim en la diáspora. Recientemente se unió una persona para ser el director general para Medio Oeste y el norte de África. Entonces, un poco la distribución ha habido, Bnai Anousim han sido forzados a salir de sus países de origen, llámese Francia, España, Portugal, y se distribuyeron en una buena parte del mundo. Recién se está integrando el equipo para hacer el trabajo, por ejemplo, en el norte de África, donde mayormente españoles, portugueses y franceses fueron desparramados, pero puede incluso llegar tan lejos como Indonesia y las Filipinas. Entonces podrías encontrarte incluso gente que fue escapando y llegó tan lejos como Australia, Nueva Zelanda, y bueno, están ahorita en búsqueda también en Anousim para encontrar un director general en Londres, y el trabajo se ha hecho haciendo también el mapeado de la gente que viajó por todo el mundo en este escape, y todos estos representan también países y gente que salió y son menos.
Metsuyan. Okay, next slide. So the call to action is we need to recruit more activists, social media people, truth tellers, if you prefer. For lobby groups, we need to recruit more rabbis to work with the Bnai as returnees, also as converts. The scriptures I like to quote is in Deuteronomy 16:20. Shoftim is my own parsha, by the way, the parsha that was being read the week I was born. Justice, justice you shall pursue. I like quoting Micah 6:8, do justice, love kindness, and walk modestly with Hashem. That's what Hashem requires of us, all of us. We are an all-volunteer organization. People decide on what tasks they want to do, what time commitments they can make. That's all decided by the volunteers. People can use skills they already have developed or choose to develop new ones under the guidance of someone who's experienced in that area. And if people are interested in joining us and helping us in all of these areas, my email address is there and you can contact me directly.
Bien, entonces tenemos la llamada a la acción. Parte del objetivo ahora es reclutar más gente que se involucre en defender la verdad. Gente que esté también trabajando en redes sociales, que sean especialistas en estos y sean estos que lleven la verdad a ser pública, ¿no? También reclutar más rabinos que puedan trabajar con Bnai Anousim como gente que viene y hace un retorno. Ahora ella también lo relaciona con un pasaje en Deuteronomio, la Parashat Shoftim. Es curiosamente la Parashat que tocó en su fecha de nacimiento, y nos dice: justicia, justicia has de perseguir, y haz justicia, ama la misericordia, y camina modestamente con Hashem, un verso de Miqueas 6:8. Todos los voluntarios en esta organización, con sus funciones, compromiso que tienen, pueden ser escogidos como voluntarios, y también los voluntarios pueden utilizar aquella facilidad que se le da como carácter, y todas sus herramientas, y escoger desarrollar algo en particular para ayudar a Ezra Anousim. Por supuesto, hay gente que los entrena al respecto. Si están interesados, aquí está el correo para poder contactarle directamente.
Excellent. Okay, now we're going to, I think the next slide is about the Q&A. So yes. Okay, so if anyone has a question or would like to comment, if it's not too long, to allow other people to ask questions. I don't see anything put into chat with messages being typed in chat. So I don't know, Lowell, are you going to facilitate the Q&A?
Well, I've asked everyone to unmute, and considering the size of the group, perhaps people can just make questions and comments as they like. We can all see each other. Well, some people actually we can't see, but we could hear. And perhaps that's the best way to do it. Who would like to go first?
I want to commend Yaffa for making me do some homework. You know, this is it's a fascinating ongoing challenge to find a way out to be inclusive in a political situation that tends too often to be exclusive. For example, I came across this issue is not something that you brought to the attention of the Israeli government yesterday, apparently as early as 2017, so that's almost 4 or 5 years ago, the Diaspora Affairs Committee of the Knesset looked into ways to accommodate this increasing phenomenon of Anousim and the inclination of so many of them to become fully embrace us observant Jews. And some of their proposals seem to be contradictory. For example, they are willing to set up what they call cultural centers abroad, so that Anousim can learn. Can you imagine that? Can learn to be proper Jews before they can apply for citizenship. And in some outlandish proposals, that period of waiting in limbo could extend to, are you ready for this? To 40 years. Can you imagine 40 years of acculturation to become truly eligible to apply for a longer stay or permanent stay, more than the 3-month stay that now is permitted for either study or tourist visa. So the enormity of the challenge is mind-boggling to me. Anyway, it takes, I think, it is forthcoming. It should be more forthcoming to Israel to find better and more practical solution to this issue. What do you think?
So here's what happened. It started in 2015 in October with that meeting at the Knesset. There were about 300 people there. A lot of them are people who try to help the Bnai Anousim. Some people were there who are from the Bnai Anousim. I was there representing both. Someone who is from the Bnai Anousim, I returned, and I also now try to help them. So what happened out of that meeting at the Knesset in October 2015, they locked the ball over to the Diaspora Affairs Ministry so that they would do some research, and they put together a committee. Don't you love committees? And it took 2 years for this committee to interview a whole bunch of people, okay, and get all kinds of perspectives and this and that and the other. They put out a report in 2017. That's what you're talking about. The report came out in 2017. Now, one of the recommendations in the report was for them to do a mapping project. Let's map these communities, where they are, what countries they are, how many people, what the background of those people are, whatever. It took 2 years for that mapping project to be done. I know the fellow who did it. I met him finally and started to talk to him about all this, and we became fast friends. So it took him 2 years to do the mapping project and write his report. In the meantime, we've got coalitions coming and going. We've got multiple elections going on in the government. You know the whole thing that's gone on for the past couple of years. And at the end of his report, he didn't even have a Ministry of Diaspora Affairs to submit the report to. Finally, he did, but then that coalition was going to be gone in another few months, and that person wasn't necessarily sure she was going to continue to be there, okay? So then it all got hung up again, waiting for the next election this past March, and this new coalition that just got in place recently, okay? So this has been 5 years in the making of now being able to talk to somebody in the government about this. And you're right, that Diaspora Affairs Committee, and by the way, they didn't even invite me to be interviewed by them. I've been facing personal discrimination by these government officials, these MKs, these heads of these ministries, because no one wants to talk to me. Now tell me, Asher, why would no one want to talk to me? I've been dealing with this movement for 30 years. I am myself from the Bnai Anousim. I made officially a return, made Aliyah. I did the return 3 times, twice in the US and once in Israel, okay? Don't you think I mean, this kind of boggles my mind. Don't you think they would want to talk to someone like me? Not because it's me, I'm saying, but don't you think they would want to talk to someone like me? No. And I don't know why. I don't know why. I have some hunches and some suspicions, but I don't know absolutely why they wouldn't even want to talk to me. Now, I've sent emails to the World Zionist Organization, silence. I met with the head of the Jewish Agency. Nothing came out of it except they locked the ball over to the JPPI, the Jewish Policy Something Institute, JPPI. 3 people asked them to contact me. The chairman of the Jewish Agency, who's now the president of Israel, he will be sworn in at the end of this month. The deputy chair of the Jewish Agency.
Talking about Herzog?
Herzog, yeah. He wanted the JPPI to interview me. His deputy chairman wanted the JPPI to interview me. And the guy who did the mapping project was on their case to interview me. They never contacted me. Okay? So
Well,
why do you think?
Can you follow this up now? This could be an
They
opening.
don't respond to me. They don't respond to me. Okay? So the bottom line is, I'm not just an activist for the Bnai Anousim, which I certainly am. I'm the head of an NGO in Israel, 16 years old. Okay? And they don't want to talk to me. And nobody will explain to me from their perspective what's going on, why the discrimination, why it's lasted so long, why nothing can be done about it, why they, oh, by the way, I'll share with you two other conversations I had. I had a conversation this week with the CEO of the Jewish National Fund, JNF, okay? I told him about, briefly, the story of the Bnai Anousim and everything that's been going on, not what I just said to you, but, you know, basically. And what he said to me was this: it's political. There's nothing I can do about it. It's political. And I've been waiting for just one person to use that word with me, that it's political, okay? The other thing is, I talk to people and they say, well, Yaffa, call this one, and Yaffa, call that one, and Yaffa, you know, send an email to Yaelet Shached, okay? But all the new ministers are busy getting geared up for their new positions. Nobody's going to answer emails from anybody. That I understand, okay? But the Ministry of Interior has never answered the question officially. Why do they not allow for the people in Latin America who cannot join a recognized community because of the Takana? So it's not due to any fault of their own. They cannot. They're prohibited from joining regular Jewish communities in Latin America. Why can't they have an exception process, even though they have that policy? And I could think of a reason why they might want that policy, but they won't even answer the question, well, why can't you have an exception process for people living in these countries where they're not able to join a regular Jewish community? Why can't we do something different for them or have an exception process? So they won't answer why they have this ban across all emerging communities, everywhere in the world, by the way, and for all streams of Judaism. There was a man from Abu Dhabi who converted to Judaism in the context of a community that at the time he converted, that community was not recognized by the Ministry of Interior. Later they were. But at the time he converted, they weren't. So he comes to Israel. He thinks he can make Aliyah. He can't make Aliyah because at the time he converted, he was a part of an emerging community which later became a recognized community, but that was after his conversion. 5 years. Asher. 5 years. They wouldn't do anything with this man. And finally, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court, all the way to the Israeli Supreme Court. Then what happened was, and they were after the Ministry of Interior explained this, why, right? So finally, they offered the guy a deal. They said, look, stay in Israel, convert a second time. Here in Israel now, you'll definitely be a part of a recognized community, and then you can make Aliyah. So the case was withdrawn, right? With no determination at the end, no Israeli Supreme Court determination about his case. So I talked to the lawyer, and I said to her, well, that's really disastrous for the Bnai Anousim, because if they had made a determination in his case, we could have used that class action lawsuit. She said, oh, it wasn't a class action lawsuit. I said, it wasn't class action? She said, no, under administrative law, there's no such thing as class action. Okay? So even if they had made a determination in his case, we wouldn't be able to use it for the Bnai Anousim for the situation with Latin American Bnai Anousim, because, it's not a class action lawsuit. You can't do that in administrative law. So we are hitting doors slammed in our face right and left if we can get through a door and talk to somebody. And in most cases, we can't even talk to them. That's how political, whatever political means, that's how political it is. So what other option do we have? I mean, can you think of some other way to get through this knothole except to go to the media? The only thing I can think to do is to go to social media, print media, radio, TV, you name it, across the board in Israel and the US, and tell this story of how these people are being treated. Oh, one more thing. I'm sorry, one more thing. I was talking to a Haredi rabbi in the United States. Haredi, who claims he wants to help the Bnai Anousim. Okay? No, this is what he's saying. Here's what he told me. He said, the people who convert should create their own communities, again, right, create their own communities, and if not the second, definitely by the third generation, they'll be accepted as Jews. Ma? Lama? 3 generations? What's he talking about? Okay? But this is not true for anybody else who converts. Anybody else can come in as a convert, and I'm even told some people who convert go right back to their Christianity very, very quickly after they pass Beit Din. That's going on, but for the Bnai Anousim, no, we're not going to do anything with them. So I may sound like I'm frustrated, but I'm not going to give up. And I'm not going to give 1 inch to these people who will only say to me, well, it's political.
No, but of course it's political. Everything is of substance is political. The important thing is to create alliances, to create connections. And here is something that I'm throwing to you as a possibility. There seems to be a perception that Anousim concerns the Latin Americans and Latin and South Americans, but in some residual research, I came across the notion that they are Polish crypto Jews who were suppressed and oppressed. And now they may not be many, but it may be worthwhile to extend this your effort to include the communities such as they may be in Europe.
Oh yeah, we do. We have.
So you're aware of this?
No, we have a managing director for Portugal. We even have a new rabbi who's joined us in Portugal, in Lisbon, who's going to work with the Bnai Anousim. And all I have to do,
there is a rabbi in Germany, by the way, for the first time in 90 years.
Right. All I have to do is find him 2 other European rabbis. Boom. We have a Beit Din for the Bnai Anousim in Europe. And I'm working on that. I forgot to put that on the list of what we're working on. Okay.
That's
and Italy. And we have people in Italy, and we have people in the Balkans. Do you know that not all the Spanish Jews that left Spain and went to the Balkans, to Greece, to Salonika, and other places in the Balkans, not all of them were outwardly Jewish. Many of them were also crypto Jews, secret Jews. We want to work with the people in the Balkans too. We want to work with Bnai Anousim no matter where they live in the world on that map, which I showed you the map. Middle East, Morocco. There are secret Jews living in France. I have a couple in Paris waiting for me to connect them to a rabbi that will teach them in preparation for Beit Din. There's all kinds of things going on all over the world. In the Philippines, all over the world. But the biggest problem, the biggest, the hugest, the largest problem is Latin America because of the Takana. These people can't join a regular community. So they have to create their own communities, not by choice, okay? And then the Mizrah happening only Shas, only since Shas took power over the Ministry of Interior has it been the case that the people in Latin America were not allowed to make Aliyah after they converted, okay? And they created this new policy that only converts who converted in the context of a recognized and active Jewish community can make Aliyah. That's from Shas. It wasn't like that before, or I wouldn't have been able, listen, if it had been like that before, I wouldn't have been able to make Aliyah, okay? But I didn't convert either. I was a returnee. Anyone else? I don't want to monopolize the time here. Anyone else have a question? Bill, you have a question?
Yeah. The Bnai implies that these are the children. The children. It's besides all of the quarrels or differences that there may be between different religious affiliations in Judaism. I don't know how much we have explored the concept of heritage that is to the children of Jacob, to the children of Israel. It's a basic right. I know that outside of Israel, the response to basic rights is sustainable. It's something that can be argued successfully. Here, like you said, it's political. How much weight? I know that it's an argument that will help our cause, but I don't know how much weight it might hold with people in the government here. That's where the main plug is. To view it as a basic right of inheritance, whether they were in this affiliation or the other, or in this country or the other. I know that you've gotten down to detail, but it's a takana that's blocking one. And then we also have a completely unreceptive Ministry of Interior when it comes to Latin America.
No, the Ministry of Interior is for anybody across the world. Here's the thing I use the 80-20 rule. It's pretty close. About 80% of the Bnai Anousim have to convert because they either don't have any evidence at all of being descended from the forced converts, or their evidence are weak. I say that's 80%, okay? Now, on the other end of the bell curve, is about 1 to 2% of people who can go all the way back 15 generations, 17 generations, and get a document of the woman in the mother's female line. And that's called proof. Okay? They can go to a Beit Din and they simply get a letter from the rabbi saying they were born Jewish. That's the end of it. Okay? They're done. They can make Aliyah, no problem, whatever. Okay? Now, the group in the middle, about 18%, 18 to 20%, whatever you want to like there, are the people who can produce strong enough evidence that when they go to a Beit Din, the Beit Din will look at that evidence, and if it's strong enough, and I always tell people it's the Beit Din decision, not mine, okay? If it's strong enough evidence that they'll be able to get a Giur L'Chumra, and the L'Chumra part, okay, the extra stringency is that they go into the mikvah, even though they go into the mikvah bli bracha. But the fact that they go into the mikvah at all is the l'chumra, okay, part. And they tell them, you're going into the mikvah for the sake of purity because you've never been in a mikvah before, and they'll ask them to say shekianu, which is no problem, but they don't say the blessing of the convert. So that group of people was my estimation that they wouldn't have a problem with the Mizrah Panim because they're not technically a convert. Now, you've got the Ethiopians coming in. That's the lost tribes. You've got the Bnei Menashe coming in. For years now, they've been working with the Bnei Menashe to come in. That's lost tribes. If they ever start working with the Pashtun, okay, in Afghanistan and other Stan countries, I call them, okay, that's also lost tribes. Why is it they can work with the lost tribes people, which I have no complaint that they would do that, but why is it that it can work with the lost tribes people, have them do a Giur L'Chumra, or whatever they have them do, but they won't work at all with the Bnei Anousim, okay, if they don't have strong evidences, which is return. And now we've got this woman, just now, just the last couple of weeks I'm working with her, because I know her family in Dallas. I used to live in Dallas. I know her rabbi, okay, and they sent her to me because they know me and I know them. She went to the same Beit Din that I went to in New York, got a return certificate, very, very strong evidences for this family of Bnei Anousim, okay? She gets her return certificate. She makes Aliyah on the return certificate. No problem with the Aliyah. But now they won't let her get married. She's engaged to be married. They won't let her get married. And instead of doing a second Giyur L'Chumra, why not? She already has one. Okay, they don't like the rabbis who did that. They're Orthodox rabbis, but okay. They don't like the rabbis who did that for whatever reason. It's not on their list of the Rabbanut. Okay, whatever, right? So why not have the Giyur L'Chumra done a second time in Israel? No, she was told you have to convert, okay? So it doesn't make any sense. It's now come to the point where they're not even going to accept returnees. Although we are going to try with the guy who converted Masorti to get him sent to New York to another Beit Din, not the one that the rabbinate doesn't like, but a different Beit Din, okay, and get him a return certificate so that he can come in as accepted as a Jew by a return certificate, a Giyur L'Chumra, instead of a Masorti Giyur, okay, see if we can do it that way. And he's already here. Again, he was married to an Israeli woman, he's married. So now we've got people coming to us from inside of Israel asking for our help. They're already here. And they're running into difficulties because of the Rabbanut. So I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me that they could let all these other people come into the country, but not the Bnei Anousim. Now, one person told me this, and then I'll see if there's any other questions or comments. One person I was talking to, very knowledgeable guy, says to me like this: Yaffa, when the Israelites were living in Egypt, the Egyptians, or the Pharaoh, whichever you want to say, were suspicious of them. That if there was war, that the Israelites would take the side of the enemy of the Egyptians, and they were a pretty large force of people. Okay, so the Egyptians were suspicious of them, that might happen, so that's when they started to persecute them and enslave them and do all this other stuff. So they couldn't rise up and take the side of enemies of Egypt. And that, he told me, is what's going on now. The Jewish people in Latin America are suspicious of the Bnei Anousim. And I wrote back to him and I said, so because Pharaoh did it to the Israelites, now Jews can do it to other Jews? Mase. What are you talking about? Okay, but here's what's going on. Guess who in Latin America is all over the Bnei Anousim? All over them. Do you know?
Well, the Takana from Argentina.
No, forget the Takana. Guess who else is all over the Bnei Anousim and wanting them like crazy? The Messianics. The Messianic movement in Latin America is very, very strong and growing constantly. So what this guy is trying to tell me is, because of the Messianic Christians, these so-called Jews for Jesus and all those clowns, okay, because of that, and since 1927, I don't know, the Messianic movement didn't even exist in 1927, okay, but that's his theory, because I'll tell you, every few years, the Syrians in New York renew this takana. So it's not just 1927. They renew it every few years, that they are to continue to ban converts and what they call reverts, which is what we call a returnee from the Bnei Anousim, ban them from joining their communities. Every few years, they look at this and review it and renew the takana, renew the ban. So even though the Messianics didn't even exist in the 1920s, they didn't get started until about the 1960s, okay? So is that why they are constantly renewing I don't know, but this is what his suspicion was, is that, it's got something to do with a suspicion against the Bnei Anousim okay, that's going to damage somehow their communities or whatever. But because of that ban, then the second ban gets put into place with Shas, saying if people are in emerging communities, they convert within an emerging community, they can't make Aliyah. It's really outrageous. To me, it's nowhere near Torah. There's nothing in Torah about this. It's not following Torah. Okay, it's an actual violation of Torah. There's 36 times. I keep wanting to say 39, but it's not 39. It's 30. 39 is the things you don't do on Shabbat. 36 times in the Torah we're told to love the ger. 36 times. It drives me crazy what they're doing.
Well, yes, I would like to add something at this point, Yaffa. From 1986 to 1987, we lived, my wife and I, on Ocean Parkway and Avenue West in the Syrian Jewish community of Brooklyn. Right across the street was the Mir Yeshiva. I think Rabbi Kahane went there.
That's Midwood.
That's when I first learned about this. And I don't come from a religiously observant background. My parents were members of Reform Synagogue in Tarrytown, New York, Temple Beth Abraham. But I know enough about Jewish law to know that in making such a rule, they've created a sectarian community, because you can't make things up as you can believe whatever you want. You can make whatever rules up whoever you want. You can, for example, in Chabad, believe the Lubavitcher Rebbe is the Messiah, or more than that, because they hide a lot of their beliefs. There are now different groups within it, like you see the formation of Christianity, which is why some rabbis joke that Lubavitch is a religion very close to Judaism. Why I say this is that I realize they do this, but there's no halachic basis for doing this other than saying, well, we did it, what are you going to do about it? So what you have is a group that is like the Karaites, actually, because they've just made up their own rules. And which you can do. You can say, okay, I'm Reconstructionist, I'm Reformed, I'm conservative, I'm Torah observant. I don't like the term Orthodox because it was introduced by the Reform and it wasn't meant as a compliment in the 19th century. Why would one use the terminology of your enemies to define yourself? For anybody, anywhere, create your own terminologies. I say traditionally observant or Torah true, I don't know, some other word, but not Orthodox. So when they do that, they've read themselves out of the realm of normative Torah observant Judaism, period. You can't make up your own rules like that. If you want to be part of the broad spectrum of Torah observant Jews, whether you're Mizrahim or Sfardim or Ashkenazim, those are all issues of culture, like Asher. At a Kiddush, I know it from the Kehilat Kedoshei Yanina, where our girls were named on Broome Street. I'm Ashkenazi, but we went there for 4 years. Out the certificates. And on Rosh Hashanah, the prayers were in Ladino, Romaniot, and Hebrew. So for Kiddush, instead of having schnapps and schmaltz herring, you have uzu, feta cheese, barekas, and olives. That's about culture. That's not halakha. So I don't know. The only thing I can think of with reference to this is when Truman said to Ben Gurion, apparently this conversation actually took place, he said, Mr. Prime Minister, I am the president of 250 million Americans. And Ben Gurion replied, Mr. President, I am the prime minister of 2 million presidents. Right. Well, it's okay. You want to feel like a president, but you're basically talking about, like it says at the very last chapter of the book of Judges, repeated 3 times before the book of Kings. In those days, there was no king. Each man did what was right in his own eyes. And Asher and I have discussed this. Should people come on Aliyah to Israel? If you want to come here, you have to understand what you're coming to. There are many good aspects to the society, but it's not really a law-based society. It's a Hamulah-based society, which has its own laws. But the concept of abstract law doesn't apply here. It's what's your chamulah, what's your protection network. And laws are very flexible. I'm not saying that's bad, because somehow most of the time people work things out. Look, Israel went through 400 or 500 elections without warlords gunning each other down in the streets. Life went on. The rules were followed for that. You have to look at Eastern Europe with the fall of the Ceausescu in Romania. Look at Yugoslavia in the 1990s. That's not that long ago. Those are first world countries. I don't have to tell you about looking at South America in the 1970s, where thousands of people disappeared or were thrown out of helicopters. So Israel's doing pretty good, even though it's more of a, a group of interrelated families. So when I see what the Syrian Jews did, said, well, I know that mentality from here. It's very much reflected in the expression Shakespeare translated into Yiddish, vertäuscht und verbessert, meaning translated into Yiddish and improved. You don't prove Shakespeare. So I don't.
Lowell, this can get to the ridiculous. I have a nephew, my brother-in-law's son, who fell in love with a Syrian girl, and the rings that they put around him to prove that he's Jewish. He is Jewish. He had to go to the chief rabbi in Athens and in Larissa and in Volos in order to attest to his Jewishness. I mean, this is incredible. Parochialism gone mad. Eventually, of course, they agreed that he is Jewish, and now they have three wonderful kids. But the community is very, very insular. They are very protective, and they look askance not only on Ashkenazim, even as in the example of my nephew, fellow Sephardim. If you're not the right kind of Sephardim, then you're not legitimate in their eyes. I don't know.
But here's the thing: it may have started in Argentina and Buenos Aires with the Syrian community. Okay, but over the years, this takana, this religious community ruling, got adopted by all the other, or the majority of the other Jewish communities in Latin American countries, from Mexico to Chile and everything in between, and the Caribbean, and Cuba, everything. So the question is, given that has been 93 years of that, okay, I don't expect that going after that would do us any good, okay? But what I want to go after is the more recent ban against these people for making Aliyah, just because they can't join a recognized community and through no fault of their own. It's because of this 93-year-old ban in Latin America. So I want to go after the Ministry of Interior, which is not only Sephardi, okay, and that blows the mind. We're talking about Sephardi discriminating against other Sephardim, okay? But what blows my mind secondarily is that it's Shas, and I'm told they are driven by the Litvak, which is not Sephardi, okay? Which is very, very, talk about l'chumra, all right? I want some heavy-duty people to go after this issue of why can't they can keep their policy, for that matter, their administrative policy about people have to be a part of a community for the most part. But why can't they? Look, I'm a business manager. My job in so many companies as a consultant, my job was to do problem solving and figure out solutions to problems, okay, and then get results. And I understand politics is different and governments are different from the business world. I understand that, okay? But it's been too long and too many years where nobody has picked up this baton to say, look, this isn't Torah. This isn't even right from just a non-Torah perspective, just from, look, human relations 101. Why would they want to discriminate against all these people with this blanket policy? Now look, they won't allow us to have a blanket policy that all the Bnai Anousim should come into Israel if they want, like they did with Russia. And a lot of the people from Russia came in, not even Jewish, by halacha. Jewish maybe by a grandfather. Okay, I'll give them that.
Yeah.
All right, and let's not even talk about forged documents. I don't even want to hear it. But the point was, they even let people come in who are not halakhically Jewish, and now they're stuck if the rabbinate conversion courts won't deal with them properly and humanly and all that stuff, okay? So they let the Russians, I'm not even asking for a blanket of accepting all Bnai Anousim or all people who claim to be Bnai Anousim. I'm not asking for that. I'm saying...
Yaffa, that is the definition of political action. I remember demonstrating for freeing Soviet Jewry in the Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza in the United Nations with millions of people, including my late mother.
Right.
So it was a political, you know, there was support of it, for this in the U.S. Congress. You have to begin lobbying for that. You have to to extend the base of support.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Aren't I talking about that? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking. And I was involved with the Russian Jewry campaign as well, or the Soviet Jewry campaign. Okay, so, and I was involved with the Civil Rights Movement in 1964. Look, in 1964, okay, was the Civil Rights Act. This really gets me going. Okay, where employers of companies that had more than 50 employees were told they could not discriminate against any person based on race, color, creed, religion, gender, sex, whatever you want to call it, and ethnicity in the workplace. Okay, now what do we have going on in the United? This is 64. Now I get into the workforce in the early 70s after college. Okay, and I'm responsible for ensuring that the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, their rules and guidelines for corporations, okay, is adhered to. Otherwise, it's a lawsuit against the company. And I'm on the hook for that because I'm a manager, okay? So I'm dealing with the 1964 Civil Rights Act for years and years and years, and then sexual harassment comes later. And we have to go in and corral people, you know, and coach them and do everything to prevent them from doing sexual harassment in the workplace. And I've been involved with all these kinds of cases, okay? Now what's going on in the United States? You've got rioting, you've got murdering, you've got people doing all kinds of terrible things. And I'll tell you what I think is why. Because of moral depravity. And racism and discrimination are examples of moral depravity, and it's a slippery slope. And they are sliding and sliding and sliding and sliding down. And who's fighting the racism? Against anybody, by the way, not just the African Americans, not just the Latinos or Latina, okay? But who's fighting the racism if it's a matter of race? And who's fighting the discrimination against people because of issues of color or national origin or gender or whatever else? Who's really fighting? They're not fighting it. They report it and they talk about it and on and on and on. Now they've got this thing in the United States called critical race theory that they want to teach in the schools, that whites are racist, that every person who's white is by definition a racist against all these other, you know, supposedly people of color. They wanted to teach the kids this in schools and have the white children feeling bad and feeling responsible for the victimhood of these other, it goes on and on. Now listen, I'm telling you, this has gone out to social media, and now the people that are against Israel are using this to claim that Israel is white supremacist and racist and discriminating against all these people. Why? Because Israel is run by Ashkenazi Jews. This is their claim on social media. Yeah, I know, I'm seeing you shaking your head, but look, if people don't fight these things, this moral depravity of discrimination and fake allegations and all of this stuff, it's just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse. But most people, what do? They're busy with their jobs, I understand. They're busy with their families, I understand. But if this doesn't get fought, it's not going to get any better, and it's only going to get worse. Meanwhile, we've got these millennial people, millennials, they claim, these young people who are eating up all this stuff and ready to fight. Fight for the blacks, fight for Latinos, okay, and fight Israel. Now, do we need this? They're going to fight Israel because we are racist against the Palestinians. Did you know this, by the way, that we're racist against the Palestinians? Okay, this is what's going on in the world.
Yaffa,
Because
the big lie will never prevail. That's a lie. All you have to do is play a clip of yesterday's testimony by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Milley, on racial theory, race-based theory. And you would find, you will see Representative Gates, Matt Gates, who has been accused of many, many moral and depraved things. And his day is coming, shaking his head because he could not answer him. He said, the general said, I want to know as a white man what that means. This is a ludicrous charge that there is a race-based theory that is being demanded in public schools. That's part of the gestalt of the big lie. He wanted to know what the real problem that has come to the fore in the George Floyd situation and other like manner situations is the fact that America has not come to terms with its racism. Let's call it what it was. The original sin that started in 1619 with the first blacks coming to America from the only group that was forced to come here. We fought a civil war, and Reconstruction was supposed to take care of that. And then we reverted back to Jim Crow for another 100 years. Now we have an opportunity to deal with basic systemic conditions that have been overlooked. I don't think there is anything wrong with saying that race has been an accident that benefited white people. The fact that some people were born white for so long in America gave them a head up. Yesterday, the New York Times had a major disclosure that because of the COVID, but not exclusively of that, because it's the condition of our society, the actual life expectancy, of white people was decreased by 2 years, for Black and Latinos by 4 years. What does that mean? There is a disconnect in the family situation, in the fact that African Americans do not earn as much. They live with discrimination. They have their homes are redlined. They pay more in interest rates. All kinds of things. Well, all of that has to be confronted, and I think it's being confronted, but there is a lot of pushback, obviously. There are those who will say, you know, let's keep things as they are, or worse, or better, let's go back to the 50s. Oh yeah? When women were only in the bedroom and in the kitchen.
In the kitchen, right. Barefoot and right. I know. Look. Here's. No, wait.
Could you make a conclude? I'll have to.
Yeah, I'm gonna conclude.
You could continue
Thank
to
you.
the others here, but if you could make.
No. I'm gonna do it. Right now. Okay. The bottom line is we have to have a movement that's like the Soviet Jewry movement. And we have to get the Congress, I agree. We have to get the Congress behind it. We have to get the Christians, the pro-Israel Christians behind it. And we're losing on that front, which I explained in this lecture, okay? As well as getting as many Jews involved. The problem I see is there's so much apathy and indifference to any major movement, and people stick their head in the sand like an ostrich with a major part of their anatomy flapping in the breeze, waiting to be a target. That's how I describe it, okay? So we've got to get people active and not just saying, yes, I agree with you, Yaffa, yes, you know, this and that, and yeah, it's deplorable. No, I don't want people saying it's deplorable. I want people saying, yes, Yaffa, I'm with you, and we're going to work with you, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that together, like Lowell and Les are doing these monthly, or allowing me to do these monthly lectures. Thank you, Lowell, very, very much. That's it.
In terms of a
Very nice.
remark, it's a privilege. It's not about allowing you, Yaffa. We know each other many years. I tell you a little story before we conclude, and actually then I could assign hosting to you in case some of the others want to continue to talk to you, that there's no, just because we're concluding the formal part of the recording, you have to stop talking to each other. The following happened to us. Years ago, from 2013 to 2017, we had an apartment in an area of Haifa, it's an area where many Ethiopians and Russians live, lower income people. And we liked our apartment very much, and we liked the neighborhood very much. It was very ethnic. We wanted to rent it out. So we put up notices on the internet at the local schools, universities. There are a lot of them in Haifa, and nobody responded. So I went to my neighbor Sergio, who's very down to earth, who's a respected Israeli architect who came as a boy from Romania. Asher will appreciate this because Asher's from Greece. And Sergio was a real street fighter. He said, they hated us and we hated them. He's a big, strong, you know, he's a barroom bouncer type. I said, Sergio, I don't understand something. Can you explain something to me? We have this apartment. It's a nice apartment. It's a nice working class neighborhood, mainly filled with Ethiopians and some Russians. Why doesn't anyone respond at the universities to our ads? So Sergio likes me, but he knows I live on another planet. So he just looked at me. He said, you don't understand? I said, no. He said, you really don't understand? I said, no. He said, okay, I'll tell you, Nebish, because the white folks don't want to live with the black folks, period. And for them, the Ethiopians are the black folks. And that's why they can talk all the bullshit and verbiage about being liberal, schmiberal, and have the nice values. As Tom Lehrer said in the year that, what was the year that was 1964, and his song about National Brotherhood Week, it's fun to eulogize about people you despise as long as you don't let them in your school. Okay? So I have to find for myself another term than racism, because the Torah has no concept of race. It has a concept of the families of man, different ethnic and religious groups, tribes, families, and clans that have been murdering, massacring each other for 6,000 years and hate each other. Asher can tell you from Greece. For Greece, Macedonia, every 2 blocks there's a new ethnic group, and they all hate each other. And remember what someone did is said 900 years ago, and they have the code of revenge, and the Hatfields and the McCoys, and the Montagues and the Capulets, and Romeo and Juliet. So he knows about that. He comes from that culture. So it's group. I can't use the term racism because the Torah has no concept of rape. And an example of how silly it was, my father was a captain in World War II, and they had segregated units. Well, to show you how silly that is, when do you determine whether someone is a light-skinned black or a dark-skinned white? What, you're going to have Nazi racial anthropologists make a chart? Is it chocolate ice cream, or is vanilla ice cream, or it's a mix? It's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense.
And yet, all the blood flows red.
Agreed.
Every single person. Okay.
Agreed.
So look, let's stop it now because, you know, we're done. But Asher, if you want to stay on, anybody else wants to stay on, I'm willing to stay on.
So we want to
let's close it.
To make my closing remark. Thank you, Yaffa, for hosting our monthly Bnai Anousim.
Thank you.
Seminar. Looking forward to next month's seminar. We thank our Zoom participants and the audience out there.
And we thank Moshe. We thank Moshe translating.
Oh, yeah, Moshe.
Of course, beautiful Spanish, Castilian. It's not street Spanish. My father told me about that from the South Bronx.
2 continents applaud you, Moshe.
Yes, Moshe.
And shalom, and Shabbat shalom from Jerusalem.
Amen.
And to everybody.
Shalom, shalom.